Yeah, speaking for ROI, I'm curious to learn that a lot of features that are on the to make the product more inclusive, by nature, the way the impact is measured probably going to be very different from the mainstream way of doing things. So, how do you help to um, calculate or measure the ROI for those features?
Yeah, great question. So the way Pinterest works, our experimentation platform has essentially a series of metrics across the board. You know, is it positive for new users? Is it positive for a cohort of these users? You know, is it positive from an ROI standpoint, from an ads platform? And it's really interesting. And I was just telling a team this the other day that rarely is any feature that we launch 100% positive to every metric. And that's where the product management and product decision making comes in, because you can say, hey, this is really good for new users, but it's not great for our, like our users that are power users, right? And so do you ship it, or do you only ship it to new users and not ship it to your power users? These kind of decisions are extremely difficult to make with data alone, because you have to you see the data, and half of them you would say, if it's not 100%, then just don't ship it, right? But that seems crazy, right? And so again, we do have, because we have the experimentation platform, it gives us some freedom to launch things to very niche sets of users. It makes your system extremely complex when you do that. So that, it's not just personalization, but it's something else. So we try and make our bets on where we're going and part of our values as a company, and not so much. One of the interesting things that people laugh a bit about me when I talk about Pinterest goals. Our goal on Pinterest is not for you to stay on Pinterest for forever, right? I mean, like people call it doom scrolling. We want you to actually be inspired to actually go out and do something, like cook dinner, or buy a new dress, or find out how to make a table for your home office. We want you to leave Pinterest to go actually out in the world and do things, right? So it may be a little bit different from a company culture standpoint than others, but we try and put it around our values.
I think it's so interesting, especially in like the world of like increasing retention on a platform where it's like we want to have eyeballs on our central platform as long as possible. How do you measure that? Like, do you measure like the conversion from like idea to action? Like, is there a way to like see that type of impact?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this is one of the big things we're launching tomorrow. Is we call it takes, and I even did it this morning. One of the creators that I follow does a whole bunch of breakfast stuff, and he did this whole cheesy egg thing. And what I did was, what you do is you get a video of like how he did it, and then you film yourself doing it and saying, and I happen to add jalapenos and sriracha and a few other things on top of it, and said, this is my version of what he created, and then I posted it back. And so the whole point was to build a community around the recipe that I was following this morning. And you can imagine that in recipes where people will build a vegan version of it, or a steak version instead of a chicken version, or something like that. But you can also think about it as fashion, or beauty, or home, or pretty much everything, right? I'm doing a creative project, and here's what mine look like. Pinterest has been famous for years on what's called Pinterest fails. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Even 6-7 years ago, of course, somebody would come out with this beautiful cake that they baked, and it's all perfect. And then somebody would try and attempt it, and of course, it would come out a disaster, right? And so they would take pictures of like, here's what it's supposed to look like, and here's what mine came out like. And that's been a really famous meme. If you do a search for Pinterest fails, you'll see all kinds of wonderful examples of people trying stuff and then totally making a disaster of it. So hopefully people will work their way through that and show their beautiful takes. But that's the idea. And what we're building is not an entertainment platform. I'm a geek, so I'll say something like utility. We want people to be, want to be helped, right? I want to go there and find, hey, I need to go make cookies for my kids' Halloween party, and then go out and do it, and then share it with someone else. Like, hey, I changed just a little bit, and here's how it goes, right? And that can be a community versus like just sort of like a blind, I like that, or I'm following this person, right? So we want it to be a community of people that are like-minded.
Yeah, and now we'll go back to like the decision making to like determine certain features or certain products or projects that people are working on that impact those end users. Like, because I have to imagine like it's kind of like almost a tricky incentive. Like, how do you set up the incentives in a right way to create that? Um, is there like how do you use like the mission of Pinterest within the decision making of the different products and features and things that get released in a way that's incentivizing those outcomes that you want people to achieve on the platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've had a lot of debates about this internally, and a lot of companies, especially in the social space, use time on site as their metric. We don't use that. What we want is more like, call it sessions. Like, I would love for you to come and get inspired about what to make for dinner every night, and come and say, hey, I want a chicken recipe tomorrow. I want a soup recipe, and come every single night to do that. So we're talking about sessions and not necessarily session length. And this part of the reason that we've done things like takes is that we want people to show what they did afterwards. And so community engagement and feedback. We played around with comments and likes and things like that, and are sort of, pushing that off to the side, saying we'd rather just have you show what you did versus, just say, hey, I like this idea. And so that's really what we're after. And frankly, it's early days. We're experimenting like crazy. We have a CEO and a head of product that are super passionate about this space. And so, it's part of our mission.